Waihuhuetup, and Squest Cookbeat Willie Sellers, Tekel Sequebmulu. Hello, my name is Chief Willie Sellers from the Williams Lake Indian Band, newly elected in August. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish First Nations for allowing us to be presenting on their traditional unceded territory today. Originally on the agenda, Chief Michelle Edwards was supposed to be facilitating this panel, but something came up. She felt sick and she is on her way home, so I was asked to step in last minute. So go me. So newly elected chief in August. I sat on council with the Williams Lake Indian Band for the last 8 years. I have past experience in economic development. I worked as a special project coordinator for the Williams Lake Indian Band for the last 5 or 6 years, so transitioning that into my new position has been fun. I'm very passionate about it. We're doing some pretty great things in the Williams Lake area. We're flourishing on the economic development side for sure. I mean, we're blessed with a good location located right along Highway 97 next to a major urban center for our area. We're not a Kamloops Indian Band, we're not a West Bank, we're not a Tsleil-Waututh, but we're doing what we can for our area and we're thriving that way. I could speak all day about this stuff, but I think we're already behind time, so I'm going to jump right into it. We got a great panel here today with some great presentations, and there's going to be a lot of time for Q&A, so save your questions until the end. With that, I'd like to introduce Chance Gamble, sorry. He's the CEO of New Relationship Trust. He's going to get us started and start our panel today.
Thank you. Actually, on your agenda, it has Cliff Freegan. Cliff is the CEO of NRT, and Cliff was actually called up north, and he's actually doing a presentation up north on behalf of NRT, and he's asked me to step in. So you're going to get the B class today, and I apologize for that. What you're going to have on the screen is our presentation that we've delivered about 7 or 8 times this year, so some of you probably have seen it. What I've been asked to do today is talk about economic development. I'm going to scroll through our slides very quickly because I've only have 5 minutes. If you would like a copy of this slide presentation, please let me know, and I'm happy to provide it to you. Just grab your email from you. I don't have to send it to you because you guys are already getting it, so we're good. NRT was created in partnership between the First Nations Leadership Council and the province of BC in 2006. The province launched NRT with $100 million. Some of our inaugural board members are here with us. Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, good to see you, sir. And other people here in the hall. I haven't taken a look around. I apologize if I miss you. NRT funds 5 areas. NRT's objective is to find out from community members how they want the fund to be spent. So every 3 years we go out, we conduct regional engagement sessions. At the sessions, we find out how the community wants us to spend the funds. And so through these regional engagement sessions, we've narrowed our focus to 5 areas. And one of the mandates of NRT is not to duplicate funding of other organizations. That was something that was made very clear at the beginning. We do not want to duplicate government funding, otherwise the potential of that funding getting cut in the future. It's something that our chief and council members are very, very wary of, and so we're mindful of it as well. We focus on governance capacity, economic development, education, language, and youth and elders. Mission, vision, I'm going to skip over this. I'm going to get to the economic development. I'm going to skip the guiding principles, strategic plan. We do that every year. Governance capacity, 1.6 million for direct support. Tribal council policies, $250,000. Nation governance, this is new. We developed this in the last year. We provide funding for First Nations that want to advance their self-determination policies, procedures, governance structures. So if you are looking at developing a nation-to-nation model where you are advancing your self-determination strategies, policies, principles, structures, we have a new initiative for you as well in that area. We work with the First Nations Technology Council. Projects that we fund, we ask the people who, and First Nations who complete the projects to allow us to share those projects with everyone else through the Tech Council. And on the Tech Council's resource board, you will see some of the projects that have been completed. Chief, I'm going through this as quick as I can. Economic development, we focus in two areas, and I'm going to stop here and I'm going to speak for a while. We provide funding through partnerships with the Aboriginal financial institutions in British Columbia. We provide $5,000 matching funds for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs can apply directly to the ACCs and the 2 community futures that we work with. They evaluate your application. If you qualify for a loan with the ACCs, the AFIs, you would receive potentially a matching $5,000 equity grant. Not a loan, it's a grant to you. We also work to support First Nations-owned entities. The First Nations-owned entities can receive up to $25,000 in matching grants. And as I mentioned, we have a partnership with the Aboriginal financial institutions. They evaluate the loan applications. They decide who receives those, and it's a flow through to you or to your community-owned entity. We provide funding to the NRT Foundation, the Aboriginal Business Awards, and the Young Entrepreneur Symposium. Young Entrepreneur Symposium, very quickly, is a tough week that youth get together, work in teams to develop strategies on challenges. If you have any youth under the age of 30, 19 to 30, my suggestion is you contact us, let us know about your youth, and we'll provide them on our contact database and inform them of our Young Entrepreneur Symposium coming up in the future. We just had it. It's the only national event that we do. We spread it around. One year it's out of BC, the second year it's back in BC. So this coming year it'll be in Vancouver again. Education, scholarships and bursaries, K-12 program, NRT Foundation provide funding. Created a separate standalone entity to attract additional funds for scholarships and bursaries. Youth and elders, language funding, special projects, navigators. They work with the communities to help them identify skills and employment opportunities. That project is funded partially by the federal government. That project ends funding March 31st this year. We're still determining whether that's going to continue. This is really what I want to talk about, economic development strategy. The economic development support team, what we did was, way back when I first started with NRT, it seems like a long time ago now, we were talking about a SWAT team to help communities to develop their economic strategies. What we realized is that some communities, wherever they are on the spectrum of economic development, they all need a little bit of advice to get them to the next step. It doesn't matter which community it is. So we created the team of business consultants who work with communities on a case-by-case basis. And it's up to the community if you want to apply to the EDST program. You apply, we evaluate your application form, we hire a consultant to go work with the community to drill down further, asking additional questions to actually determine what economic development opportunities you want to focus on. Then work on a work plan. The work plan does lay out how you would reach your next step goals. The EDST program is funded right now by Western Economic Diversification. The funding ends March 31st, 2019. We're determining if that's going to be extended. EDST, we feel, is something very useful for communities because it's specific to your own community. It's not a cookie-cutter approach to economic development. We go in, the consultant works very closely to determine what the needs are of that specific community, and the work plan is based on how you want to take the next steps forward. And the projects are determined by the community. We also have the BC Indigenous Clean Energy Initiative. We got Judith Sayers with us, who's also on our NRT Foundation board. She's our chair, and Judith works very closely with Clean Energy Initiative. The project, believe, will be extended, but we haven't had confirmation. Again, this ends March 31st of this year. West Coast Energy Fund was a fund that was available. There was the potential that that fund was going to go back to Treasury Board, so we asked them if we could change the parameters of it. They allowed us to, and so in the last year, we flowed out $4.6 million for projects. And if you're interested in what those projects are, please let me know and I'll provide you with more information. Annual report, we do an audit every year. We also provide our annual report online and we send it out to each community. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the web. 5 minutes. How was that? Hey. Thank you.
I think you might have went over his 5 minutes, but we'll allow it. I think we heard National Chief Perry Bellegarde speak yesterday about big money chiefs. I think this would be considered one of the big money chiefs in our region, I guess. So make sure that you hit him up. I mean, there's a ton of funding opportunities there. I mean, we've utilized them in the past for some of the initiatives that we have at WLIB too. So I think pretty important to help build capacity in those First Nation communities is to find the right funding partners to subsidize that stuff. So with that, I'll continue along. I'd like to invite Charlene Gale. She's the chair of the First Nation Major Project Coalition. She'll be our next speaker on the panel.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Charlene Gale. I'm from Fort Nelson First Nation, and I'm also the chair of the First Nation Major Projects Coalition. Today, I want to recognize our presence today on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. The Coalition is a First Nation-led business capacity organization. We are comprised of 45 nations across 5 provinces and 1 territory. Our mandate is to provide our members with fact-based, non-political tools, processes, and information so that our members can arrive at informed business decisions regarding major project development that is happening within their territories. Our governance structure is driven from the bottom up. Our processes rely heavily on the needs and input of our members. The work of the Coalition has provided a positive impact at the community level. The Coalition is also inclusive of both hereditary chiefs and elected leadership. This inclusiveness is important to inform our internal decision-making process. I think we have to recognize that our hereditary chiefs in certain nations have a huge role to play in the decision-making of their communities for future development. I have 3 main points that I want to address this morning. I want to talk about the Coalition's role in building economic literacy. I will touch on our connectivity to economic development through our environmental stewardship work. And I'll close by describing how our models are working to support the First Nations' ability to assess and pursue major project opportunities. The Coalition was established by a core group of First Nations who recognized that our communities needed additional capacity in order to get their businesses running and start to take control of the wealth being generated by their resources. The Coalition is a converging power. We are able to bring our members together for in-depth conversations about what is happening on their territories, what kind of projects are happening, and talk about their business interests. The Coalition is equipped to provide necessary tools and in order to advance them to make these decisions. We have been able to successfully form the Coalition and develop a business tool and a business guidance document. These documents address the gaps in the capacity we face in the community level. They are rooted in the interest of our members and are respective of traditional knowledge and the cultural uniqueness of many communities working together. Through these exercises in business, the economic literacy and business confidence of our members has risen across the board. We have tools in which they can assess the value of the chain of major projects, understand the model of project finance, and leverage negotiation approaches within their communities as business owners within these projects, and to find the best deal possible in having equity. Our approach to project economics is not just based on dollars and cents. Through the development of the work that we've been doing, we have created the project identification and capacity support process. Coalition members have adopted a set of criteria to help us define the characteristics of a major project. Addressing the environmental impacts of a project development is the gateway to being able to talk about a business deal. Our members have stated that the environmental interests within our territories must be dealt with and is a gateway to other project considerations. Our members have also recognized the need to be better predictability of the outcomes when it comes to addressing these environmental concerns. The capacity to address the impacts on the land vary widely among our membership. In order to address these gaps in the capacity, the Coalition has advanced an environmental stewardship framework. The framework acts as a baseline guidance document, providing tools to our members to adopt common approaches to environmental stewardship, project assessment, and this style of process is intended to provide a great value for large linear projects such as roads, railways, transmissions, and pipelines. Both the Government of Canada and BC have recognized our work in this regard. The Coalition is using the processes and practices designed by our members to help influence the new policy and regulatory work and changes that are coming out of both Impact Assessment Act at the federal level and the BC Environmental Assessment process. In addition to our ability to use our processes and tools as a point of collaboration with government in areas of shared interest, these tools and processes are being applied to major project consideration and opportunities at the request of our members. The Coalition is currently working and providing capacity support to 3 major projects. The water release facility at the Kenny Dam is a $300 million project being provided at the request of our members of Chislata, Nakasli-Wet'suwet'en, Silatin, and Sycuz First Nation. In this case, the Coalition has provided coordination and support to bring the First Nations together to talk about this project, to identify credible project partners, assist with project due diligence, and help bring government and stakeholders to the table. The Prince George to Kitimat line upgrade project is estimated at $1.2 billion infrastructure, impacting communities of 16 Coalition First Nation members, including both hereditary and elected leaders. The Coalition is playing a similar role in this project on the water release facility. We are also undertaking an economic study of the Trans Mountain Pipeline project. This request came at the request of our members to determine the economic viability of the project in its current environment of Crown ownership. The outcome of this study, once complete, may inform a business case for those First Nations who wish to decide on ownership interest in the project. These are examples of the models and processes that we have developed with our members, and it shows you how they're working in real-time projects that are happening now within our nations. The involvement of the Coalition has fostered an environment where our members feel comfortable working together and has created an environment where private sector partners are willing to invest development dollars and put their risk on the table to do business with our communities. In all cases, none of these projects would have advanced without the help and the work of the Coalition. I believe this is a testament of not only the value of the organization, it is also an excellent example of what can happen within our communities when we're empowered with the tools to make informed business decisions and the opportunity to work together. The Coalition has established a national benchmark and is the only organization of its kind. We have established processes that our members trust, and we are conveying our powers by uniting our interests and creating business opportunities for our members that are meaningful. So I want to thank you for listening, and I look forward to the question and answer period. And with the ending of my presentation, I just have a short video to share with you guys. So, Masi.
The time is now. There's this growing story of Indigenous business success. There's this growing story of Indigenous business advantage, that working with Indigenous peoples is both good for the local, the regional, the national economy, as well as the socioeconomic well-being of our First Nations communities.
The First Nation Major Project Coalition, perhaps the most exciting thing happening in Canada right now in terms of Indigenous economic engagement. It is a mechanism and a tool for engagement, for wealth building, for prosperity building. It has enormous potential.
The First Nation Major Projects Coalition is comprised of 49 First Nations from across Canada. It's been really great to share what we're doing with the other communities and to learn from them. We are building the foundation upon which our nations have started to work together to advance projects over shared and multiple territories.
The way the chief mentality is, Norios is open for business, and that's what we're here for.
People are realizing how important it is to incorporate nations to be involved in their business projects, especially when they're happening on their own territories. We are the stewards of the land. We are the ones that have been living there for thousands of years. And I believe that through partnering with First Nations, you would have a long-term partner.
The coalition provides confidence to industry because we act as a professional clearinghouse of information and coordination so that there's one body for industry to be dealing with.
I think the timing of the First Nation Major Projects Coalition, it couldn't be better. Now is the time to start developing and start taking equity positions and improving our quality of life and improving our income streams.
In our community in Gitchayuga, there's a minimum of 85% of our people are on social assistance, right? This gives us hope. We want to work in partnership so that it's a win-win.
There is a wealth in this country that we're going to be able to unlock through vehicles like the Major Projects Coalition that was only a dream even 5 years ago that is now becoming a reality.
The environment is changing. The way we think is changing. The way we do business is changing. And it's really bringing benefit to our nations.
Powerful stuff. When we look at major projects happening in our traditional territories, it's always discussion that we have at our council table. How do you balance the economic opportunity while still being stewards of the land, and being a part of that discussion, I think, is how we get to reconciliation. It's how we provide opportunity to our members, but keeping in mind that we still have to hold up in these major projects I guess the values of those First Nations communities, and how the balance is found is different in each community, but something that we need to think about. I actually have a couple council members here, and I just wanted to quickly note that it's one of their birthdays today. Councillor Shauna Philbrick, happy birthday to you. I wanted to mention that before introducing the next speaker on the panel, Sherilyn Billy from the Shuswap Nation Tribal Council. I'd like to invite you up to provide your presentation to the group. Give her a round of applause, please.
Wake quiet. Everyone's awake, that's good. I'm here to present actually on the Aboriginal Skills Implemented Training Strategy, which we call the BC A-Team. The whole notion of economic development doesn't move forward without our people being trained to be able to undertake those positions and build capacity within our communities. They gave me this little thing here, clicker, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope I don't press it too hard. What I would like to do though is, before I start, is to give thanks to the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish Nation for allowing me to be here. It's truly an honor to be in their territory and to be able to share my knowledge and to speak. Building capacity and growing our people to take their rightful place in the Canadian economy is work that the BCA team has been working on for the past 22 years. First off, though, because I know that she took some time out of her schedule, I'd like to acknowledge our Assistant Deputy Minister here, Sylvie Berube. She's right over here in the front, and it's nice to see our leadership at that level coming forward, because I think that that's the work that they do helps us, right? So who is the BCA team? I know I always get that look of who are they? We actually used to be the First Nations Human Resource Development Agreement holders, and we currently have 13 First Nations holders and 2 self-government agreement holders who actually oversee the delivery of the service across BC. I'm proud to say that since 2011, we've been able to serve 98,465 clients in BC. With a $30 million budget annually for all of our First Nations ASETS holders, this is truly a feat. We do what we can to serve our clients. We've had 36% of our clients obtain employment out of that. We've had 52% who are youth, between the ages of 15 to 29. And I want to mention that 6% were persons with disabilities. In BC, Statistics Canada kind of highlights that there's 172,520 identified as First Nations. With the numbers that we have, we're showing how much we've been able to support over the last few years. So the BCA team, we build on partnerships. We build on the work that's been ongoing. I know Chance here, we've actually utilized the services that they've had with regards to economic development, and it's something that we've seen value in. In 2017, actually, we wanted to highlight that we actually piloted a program. My tribal council, Shuswap Nation Tribal Council, our leadership actually said, yes, we will take it on to deliver a health careers pilot program. We had 6 ASETS holders who joined with us to deliver training to over, I think we actually initially started off with 160 people that we said we would target. In the end, we almost had 300 in British Columbia who actually participated in the training program. This type of value is this type of training adds value to our people, because as you can see, we're undertaking a lot of initiatives, but we need to have the people trained to deliver them. We had people who were in healthcare aid, dental hygienists, massage therapy, licensed practical nursing, all those things that we're going to need in our communities to build our people up. We also have partnered with First Nations Forestry Council, referred clients over to their program. We've seen about 28 people participate in that training, and they've also gotten jobs from it. We always enjoy working with Keith Atkinson and Lisa Lescombe, because they're actually, they say, you know what you're doing best, and we want to work with you, not against you. So rather than them saying we're going to do it all, they work collaboratively with us to support that. And we're moving forward too in that area of self-employment and developing companies and procurement. And this is something that we take great pride in, is those partnerships. And more recently, we've been working with First Nations Tech Council. Lauren Kelly is pretty bossy. She kind of says, hey, we want to get this done, and then they're like, oh no, So if you ever see her out there, just tell her she's bossy. She's definitely one who pushes us to work on developing new programs, and we're happy to say that we've been able to take on a few of their initiatives, such as their not only their innovation program, but they have what they call the, oh my God, was it? They have a training program that we've actually utilized in our nation and throughout BC to help people get that next level training. It's our notion. Well, when we did actually some work and research, we found that tech jobs are actually hiring, and most jobs in BC are becoming automated. I don't know if you see the news, but it's really apparent to us that automation is going to lead to a reduction in full-time workforce. So we need to start getting our people trained in what they need to know to move forward. Partnerships and programs are basically a small part of what we do. We have a couple clients here, actually. Muriel Cooper, she's from the Cowichan, and she actually undertook training in healthcare aid. And we had Catherine McMartin, who's from Seabird Island. Each of them attended training in their communities. We had in a comfortable learning atmosphere. Seabird Island College, I believe, administered the one for Catherine's group, and in Vancouver Island, they had their own ASETS holder who administered that training program. In our understanding, it's not just enough to provide training and fill seats. We feel that you should target the training to meet the individuals where they're at. And for a lot of our people, if you take a look at them and you get to know them, you understand that maybe some things that they're doing, they need to take on these other additional positions to help themselves grow. It's unfortunate you can't hear that, but she's saying thank you. For this year, we actually undertook a strategic planning session, and it's a feat. We have a lot of ASETs across the country, and part of it was to develop these priority areas to support the work that we're doing. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge, though, the hard work of some of our leadership who've actually supported us in moving forward. And that's Robert Phillips, Chief Susan James, and Chief Harvey McLeod, and the First Nations Leadership Council. They're part of that move to increased participation. This past year, the BC A team has seen probably the most influx in attendees from the province. And a lot of our meetings were always just the A team holders, the ASETS holders. But this year, I've seen the likes of Bindi Sawchuk, Shannon Renault, Chris Brown from the province of BC. Before they would balk at coming to our meetings, now they're there, regular participants. We have Sam Boonstra, who's always been there, Jeff Scott, Allison Rowe from the federal department. And all of these individuals have listened to our frustrations, because that's what we spend a lot of time doing. And the outcome has been successful. The province opened up 2 seats for the BCA team on the First Nations Advisory Council table. It's a tripartite table to look at Indigenous service delivery. And recently, the federal and provincial representatives met with Robert Phillips, actually, to discuss the First Nations leadership's recommendation for the establishment of a steering committee to address joint decision-making. There's a willingness to work with leadership to support the efforts of reconciliation. And that's brand new. That's something that we think we've seen, that we've been working towards, and it's nice to see it finally moving forward. We've also been working with the Industry Training Authority, and I know that recently they took one of our AT members, Jacob McKay, and they hired him to be their new Indigenous Initiatives Advisor. So for us, 41% of our jobs will require trades training, so we know that this partnership is key, and we hope to continue this work. In terms of moving forward, we've been doing a lot to share best practices, make referrals, and provide direction to post-secondary and other institutes to improve curriculum for our people. And the reason for that is because we're moving forward and we want to make sure that we're providing those services to support development. Recently, Indigenous Services Canada, Danae Slater, began contacting us as well this year saying, we need to work with you on the pre-employment support pilot project. We've seen about 6 or 7 of our holders across BC undertake this training supports to help our people. We applaud these types of practices as they reflect on the importance of Indigenous people working together to improve our economy based on our own understanding and finding willing partners who respect the expertise we have. We thank the leadership, federal and provincial governments for continuing to progressively work together. Now, I'm not really closing because my colleague...
Just to say thank you for sponsoring me for this program.
There, you got it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sherilyn. When we look at building capacity in the First Nations communities, I mean, that's always a struggle that we're all dealing with on a number of different levels, bringing in people that are capable of doing the work and that are going to stick around and be invested in those initiatives. I mean, that's something that we struggle with in Williams Lake, and I'm sure it's the same right across the board. I sit as a board of directors on the Indigenous Business Investment Council, and you know, part of our mandate is to help I guess, steer First Nations in the right direction and help them build capacity by not recreating the wheel, but giving them, I guess, success stories on how to get there and what's worked in the past and what hasn't worked in the past. So it's good to hear stories and organizations that Sherilyn's working towards and helping build that capacity and provide another outlet for First Nations to reach out to. With that, I'm going to invite Deanne McLeod. She's the Executive Director for the Northeast Native Advancing Society. Yes, it's a bit of a tongue twister. Please give her a round of applause.
Tansy, it's nice and warm over here. When I left home, it was minus 27. So I'm glad that there's no sideways snow and we can actually go outside without a parka on. I have to say I'm very blessed to share this stage with one of the chiefs from my region, as well as my co-facilitator and co-asset asset holder, Sherilyn Billy. So we've decided that it would be nice if I could come up and talk about some of the projects that we've done in our area. Sorry, there was supposed to be a slideshow, maybe not. I could do it without. So talking on behalf of some of the assets, some of the things that we provide, through economic development projects. So the key elements, once the community has identified and are wanting to pursue an economic project, we can help with planning for the economic development in a number of different ways. So some of the ways that we could do this is that we've supported some of our First Nation communities with community economic development strategy plans by providing or assisting with labor market information, research, data collection, partnership collection, and funding for student work experience or practicums or mentorships for community members to work in this stage of the project. We've provided assistance with other communities. We can give models of some of the things that have worked for others in the past. We also have helped and worked on a number of large-scale projects with a number of different communities. So we've developed terms of references that can be utilized, maybe tweaked, or that they could take and just roll with. Those are some of the things that you look at when you're right in the middle or in the very beginning of planning. The second thing that we can do is help. And this is really the area where we shine, is help with building the institutional and workforce capacity for the economic development. So some of the ways that we have done it, and the assets across BC, actually, well, federally, it's a national program. So some of the ways that we can help with you getting your projects up and running is building your workforce capacity. Some of the things that we could do with that, and that we've done in the past for some of our communities, is skill and education inventory, identifying specific skills needed, training program development plans, helping develop curriculum, looking at the specific and essential and personal course development, training delivery, although we do have some differences in how the assets deliver services. Some of us, and our agency is one that actually develops programs and delivers them in-house and in conjunction with our training and educational institutions. We work very closely with those services and our other sister services within our region. Up in the north, we're blessed to have quite a few resources. So we've done a number of large-scale projects, and I can get into some of them once we go along. We also provide funding for tuition, books, tools, PPE. We also provide students with living supports while they're in school or while they're in their training. We, as stated before, we work closely with other organizations such as the ITA, making and ensuring that our students are able to successfully complete whatever training they're going in. Because we're rural and we're northern, a lot of our students, if they're taking any type of trades courses, generally have to come down here for training, and sometimes we're there just to provide not only just with financial supports, but those other supports that they need when they're away from home for long periods of time. A lot of times we're the go-to or the liaison to make sure that they're able to stay in school, maybe come back for a couple of visits depending on how long their training is, come back to their apprenticeship, do their work, and then be able to spend time with their family while they're juggling all this. For some of our students, it's quite new. That's where we come in with our essential skills and our student support. We have our employment counselors. They really work well with the students, as well as the institutions and the employer. One of the other programs that we provide is target wage subsidies for work experience or practicum students. That works really well if we're with the student right from the beginning of their training or education journey. Once they've established that, if they find that they're sinking a little bit or need assistance, then they generally will reach out to our employment counselors, and we can assist them with get them back on track, or with whatever help they need. We also provide, and we can provide funding for daycare. So if that's something that's, I know in our area, right now we're lacking daycare spaces. A lot of times it's family looking after children, but that is still something that we can provide some assistance with. While we're doing all this, we're also creating partnerships and with stakeholders and industry partners. A lot of our communities up in the north, and I'm sure all of our communities, they've already have either banned businesses or JVs or IBAs or ABAs, or they've got some kind of business agreements that they've already been engaged in. Some of the projects that we can help or assist with would be, well, we definitely, in our area, we do smaller projects. The bands can come to us. They could do in community. Sometimes we've done joint community projects, like the Doki Windfields is one. So there's a couple of communities, and we assisted them with building up their capacity within their community, as well as stakeholder partnerships. Another example would be our energy and workforce development and our NEACEP program. So the energy workforce development was a partner project with WED. So that was a $5 million plus project with all of our communities in our 5 urban areas up in the north. So that was class 1, 2, 4 driver training, along with heavy equipment operating, and then just general oil field workforce training. The NIACEP was a mining project that we had again, multiple partners in that, a very large-scale project, went on for 4 years. So that was 2 different industries. That was mining and also green smart homes. That one was done with multiple partners, Wolverine Mines, West Coast Coal Corp. We deal with major stakeholders, Shell, Encana, Talisman Energy, Welcher Energy, TransCanada. We have in the past, we've got some companies and industry partners that we've worked with for the past 10, 20 years. So it's really nice to develop those partnerships and then to be able to collaborate with our communities, or to say, hey, I know a contact over there, or we've already developed a tour, you know, on other projects with Shell Canada, for example, and then we could just give it to our communities for them, even as a starting point. Anything that we could do to help with any of their projects, we really try and assist in any way that we can. We work closely also with our school district 60s. Or our school districts. So in Fort St. John is School District 60, but we also work with our urban areas as well as our colleges. So the dual credit program and again ITA, youth ITA, if we can start working with the students while they're in high school, then the transition going from high school into the college setting maybe is not so scary, or we don't lose them. Sometimes they come out of high school and it's like, woohoo, I'm done, and then they're kind of gone and they're floating around and doing their thing for a couple of years. But if we can, you know, kind of get them in and get them interested in some kind of career or development or exploration type of courses, then we can definitely help them once they do get into the college setting where it's not now it's an emergency because I'm going to school next week. They can establish that schedule and then get set up financially before they actually go into their college courses. I think that is pretty much it. Sorry, I had everything on my PowerPoint, but it wasn't up, so I'm just working off my notes. I hope if you have any questions, you know, we got the Q&A coming up afterwards. Thank you for having us. It's for our economic projects, a lot of times where the assets or your local asset holder can come into play is with providing all of these types of services. And I'm sure if they don't provide one specific, for example, like we do in-house training, some don't, but they can always reach out to the rest of the BCA team table. And I'm sure we're full of resources and tools. We're there to help you in any way that we can. The one, I just like before closing, the one interesting project that I'd like to mention is that we have done recently, and we're going to be providing again, is called, and we developed it, is called the Game of Drones. Now, the Game of Drones is actually a exploratory discovery program into drone, and it's drone racing for our youth. So they explore aviation, mechanics, engineering, and technology. Drones nowadays are used for a variety of different purposes. Because we're oil and gas and forestry, mainly up in our area, they're used for checking on pipelines, migrating paths, GIS, GPS. They've got multiple uses that are becoming more and more involved and also utilized for the big companies. So that's another project where there's multiple partners. And we're starting at the high school level and working all the way up into the college level. So that one is a really interesting project. If you guys have any questions, again, I'll be around after, and I will give it back to Chief Willie. Is it Willie? William? I was unsure. Thank you very much.
Chief Sellers, Chief Willie, we have 5 minutes left, so I guess we're getting right into closing comments. The panel will make themselves available at the front over lunch. We started a little bit late, so feel free to come on up and pick the brains of the beautiful minds that have presented to us today. I think when we look at, looking outside of the box at those opportunities, like Deanne was mentioning, that are different than your traditional economic development opportunities, like in Williams Lake, for example, resource-based economy, forestry, mining. I mean, now we're starting to have to look at ways to diversify that economy through other initiatives, like the tech side, for example, drone racing. I mean, that's something that sounds pretty cool. I mean, I've seen it on NBC, so there's definitely some money involved in it for sure, and something that people should be looking at, and providing those different opportunities for our youth especially, who are tech savvy, I think, is a big one. I sit in the room even with my young children, and they're definitely a little bit more skilled than I am when it comes to operating iPads and Xboxes, etc. I always think when we talk about economic development, I mean, that's just a piece of how we build a healthy community. It's a small piece of that puzzle. I always like to steal a quote from Chief Clarence Louie, who's actually in the room. The economic horse drives a social cart, and I really live by that model. I mean, it costs money to do everything in our communities nowadays, and we can't just rely on the government to pay those bills or fund those initiatives. We have to really look at funding a lot of that stuff, you know, especially when we're losing our language. For example, I was talking to Councillor Joanne about it earlier, and, you know, I mean, it's getting to a point where we're going to have to start paying those language speakers to continue to pass that knowledge down to our members, our youth, so that we don't lose it. And I mean, that's something that we're willing to do at WLIB, and I mean, we're really passionate about using that own source revenue in good ways, but that own source revenue doesn't come along without successful economic development initiatives. So something to keep in mind, I guess, as we look to build those healthy communities and how we get there. So I think we have probably 2 minutes now, maybe not. Again, we'll make ourselves available at the front if you have any questions for me or have any questions for the panelists that are up here. But again, thank you very much for being such a great audience. If we could get one last round of applause before we get lunch started. Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. So many wonderful opportunities there to enhance the economic activities in our communities, whatever that means to each of us, and knowing that each of us have a unique economic path. So thank you once again to our panelists. We have some gifts to thank you for your time this afternoon, or this morning actually. Well, no, it's afternoon by 15 minutes. So we're precisely at 12:15 right now. We are transitioning into our lunch break, and so this lunch break, as a reminder, is kind of short because we do have the youth and elders coming to do their report back at the end of lunch. And so at about 1 o'clock, we're going to ask them to come up on stage and share that with us. Yep, you're allowed to go. I release you from the stage. Yeah, so folks are welcome to bring your lunch in here. Once again, we'll ask that elders, folks with children, folks with, who need to eat right away, that they get a first pass at the lunch. Does anyone in the room need a plate brought to you? Could you raise your hand for a moment? Raise it high. Okay, I don't see any hands, but know that the volunteers are there to take care of you. I would now like to invite Elder Larry Grant to come and give us a blessing for our lunch. Please put your hands together for Elder Larry Grant.
Hi, Joe. I just thank you for having me to give the thanks for the food today. Hajka Siyam. Because Amastal Tanawel, I Hajka Siyam, because Amastal Mukta Ka, I Mukta Stiltasan, I Hajka Siyam, because Amastal to Shwasazikat, I Mukta Tatalmo, I Tiatam, because Amastal Mukta Maak, I Tislagums. It's because Amastal to I see much quality because we eat and I will. Amastal to book them all because Halistal, Haichka, Haitep. Thank you.